Hi, everyone. I'll start by introducing myself and then Angela can introduce herself too. My name is Gloag and I work in the math department. I'm a math professor at Miramar College, and I've been a OER user, creator, champion for a while. So I'm just here to kind of share a little bit of my experience and also some of the things that we've been doing in Miramar and across the district around OER and ZTC.
Hi, I'm Angela Boyd. I'm the OER librarian here at Miramar College, and I'll be monitoring the chat today. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them into the chat, and I'll make sure to get your questions or comments addressed. Thanks.
Thank you. So some of the things we're going to look at today: what is OER? What is ZTC? What's the difference between them? What does it matter? Where we are with OER in our colleges or districts, and what opportunities are there for all of us to get involved with OER in learning, applying, creating OER and ZTC materials. All right, so before we kind of start and dive in some sort of numbers and graphs and all that stuff, let's see if we have any questions before we start. It's not a very big group, so I would love to everybody to introduce yourself and just tell us what your role is in which college, and if you have any questions or concerns before we start, or what your experience with OER is. So I can pick on people. Rochelle, you want to start? You're at the top of my list.
Sure. Hi, Rochelle Mojica. I'm the Access Technology Specialist at Miramar College, and I'm super excited to learn more about OER, especially since during the pandemic, many of our students, or DSPS students, were using the textbook companies had started to provide more open access materials, and instructors had started to adopt more OER materials. And I noticed that there was some really good built-in accessibility features. And so I think anything that's going to not only make it more affordable for students, but more accessible for students, I'm all in. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to learning more.
Thank you. Diana?
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Vera Alba, and I am the OER coordinator for San Diego College of Continuing Education. The reason why I'm here is, of course, to support our colleagues, but also to learn more about funding for that CE would qualify for. So we are very fortunate that our district has shared some of those funding resources with us. And I have seen since the last funding or the last grant, our local grant, that there has been more interest with our CE faculty. We already write a lot of materials, we already do that, but now it's getting faculty to get it licensed and have it out in Commons. So that's why I'm here. Thank you, Anne.
Excellent, thank you. Shirley, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Shirley Pearson, and I am from San Diego College of Continuing Education. I am faculty and the program chair for the Clothing and Textiles Department. And I have a couple of project assistants with me here today too, listening in. And we are here also to check out the funding and how we can go about securing that.
Perfect, thank you. Angela Romero. You're muted.
Sorry about that. My phone was acting kind of weird.
No problem.
Now you can't see me.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm challenged today. My name is Angela Romero. I teach political science at Miramar and very interested in OER. I have transferred 2 of the classes I teach, which to all OER. I'm about to add a 3rd class that I'm also just now adopting new OER for. There's a lot more I'd like to do with OER, but I'm learning a lot. I did the OER flock with Angela and Anne over the summer. I was a mentor last semester, and I'm doing that again this semester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Olga.
Yes. Okay. My name is Olga Viena. I'm from Mesa College and I teach argumentative writing. And I'm very excited to learn more about OER. Yeah, thank you.
Great, welcome. Madeline?
Hi, I'm Madeline Sutton. I'm the new OER analyst over at City College. So I'm here to, see any and all resources you have to share. And if there's any information, I'm basically assisting faculty on their projects that they've already been approved for. So if there's any information or resources that I can gather and pass on to them, that'd be great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I see Brian. Right? You want to introduce yourself? Because you might have to answer a lot of questions.
That's fine, yeah. Brian Weston, Dean of Online Distributed Learning at District Office. And yeah, happy to support OER. And I'm still learning a ton this week too. So happy to participate and answer questions when available.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so OER, kind of from the feel of this room, you all know what they are, but we can go over some of the terms. OER are resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use of and repurposing by others. OERs, they can take lots of different forms. So I think people who get started with OER, they think whole textbook, but there's lots of different resources of different kinds of formats that count as OER. And ZTC is zero textbook cost. And basically courses that use digital materials that are free of charge to students and may have a low cost option for print versions, those are considered ZTC courses or ZTC materials. There's some educational code language that says the CSUs and community college faculty promote selecting textbooks that are more affordable to students in order to support our students. So here's some examples of OER. So not just the full textbook. And I think this is where a lot of faculty kind of get stuck with, or probably the biggest barrier that I've seen conversing with lots of faculty is that if I'm going to switch to an OER textbook, I can't find the perfect one that I want. Maybe it's not like the quality that sort of the publisher textbook is. And I try to guide faculty into seeing that OER is not just the textbook, that you can take kind of take the resources and sort of create your own like course material using lots of different resources. So OER could be handouts, they could be videos, games, assignments, Google Sites, deck cards, modules that you can find on Canvas Commons, posters, any other thing that sort of it's available for like educational purposes is considered OER. So there's a lot of freedom as an instructor to basically start putting a course that you really like to teach rather than being bound to a textbook in the literal and figurative sense. So I can sort of share a little background of my experience with OER. So I actually started teaching at a charter high school in 2001. That was a long time ago. And the high school didn't believe in textbooks. Not in the sense that, you know, reading is bad. Actually, they were quite, you know, good with sort of exposing students to all sorts of kinds of resources. But in the sense that teachers teaching out of textbooks, it would narrow education, because we have these textbooks that were published by somebody else somewhere, and the, you know, decisions made by editors and committee to what we're going to teach our students, when we're the ones who know our students. So let's get to know our students and guide them to learning in lots of different ways with different opportunities, not just bound by the textbook. So that's that was the thinking behind it. So this is where I started my teaching experience. So when I started being an educator, I went into this kind of environment where the textbook was not the thing that guided your teaching. You and my colleagues and the students were the ones who guided the teaching. We have curriculum, we had all that stuff, but it's like, how do we meet the course outlines and our goals? Not just sort of learning outcomes and our goals for what we want to teach our students, and what materials can we put together and create to meet those needs and to meet those outcomes. So I came into education not teaching using a textbook. So I taught at that school for about 11 years. And I co-authored an OER book for these corporation called CK12. So it's basically they provided funding for creating these OER textbooks for K through 12 education. And it's still in use. Lots of people use it. So it's great. I think the Khan Academy person used some of my examples from that book, because it has my kids' names in it. I can recognize which ones are the ones that I wrote. So it's kind of cool. So when I came to teach at community college, I taught as an adjunct while at the high school teacher. And I didn't know I had the freedom to speak up as an adjunct, because it's like, here's a textbook. All right, I'm going to use it. I know it's $100, $150, $200 for the students, but I'm an adjunct, so I'm just going to do what I'm told. And when I came to work here as a full-timer, it was like, oh, I can actually have say in the decisions that we make about our textbooks, because there's a process. So as much as I could, I started pushing the use of OER, and a lot of my colleagues were on board with that. So as a department, we made conscious decisions to work towards using as much OER in as many of our courses as possible. And I think that department effort is huge, because I created Canvas shells for each of our courses where instructors can put resources. So whatever worksheets that we created or we found that were good, any Desmos games, any videos that we found, we kind of share them and collect them together. So over time, we eliminate or sort of our need for the publisher textbook and ancillary materials got decreased and decreased. So I think now we're over 50% of our courses are OER, and actually they're ZTC courses. Over the past couple of years, we've also looked at this homework system called My Open Math. And I've sort of some funding that we got, especially with HERF funds, I use for professional development to get all our math instructors experience on that My Open Math system and integrate it into Canvas. So we truly have our courses be zero cost for our students. So the work continues, but we're sort of making more and more progress as the time goes by. Any thoughts or questions on that? All right, so here's a little graphic. You guys might have seen it at some point on like the textbook pricing for from the textbook companies. So the graph on the right shows a textbook price comparison in relation to consumer prices for since 1970 to about 2014, 2015. You can see that the textbook prices has sort of more like exponential increase kind of thing. So they far outpace just the consumer prices. And you can also see kind of which kinds of textbooks are more expensive. Actually, this is like the graph on the left is different consumables and sort of their increase over the last since the year 2000. Yeah. So how are the students coping with these textbook costs? And we're lucky at Miramar to have a student body and student government that's very involved in this. So we've like last year, or like Senate president and a couple of senators put together some presentations, and they went to a few of meetings like the chairs and other meetings in the district too, to voice their concerns and also educate faculty and other students on textbook prices and what we can do about it. Because the impact on students can be huge. You can see from this bar graph right here that a lot of students choose not to purchase the required textbook. And that can really be detrimental to their learning if they don't have the textbook. I think a lot of students find free PDFs online, or they take pictures of each other's textbooks, or they borrow from the library. They'll kind of go through several different options before they will purchase a textbook. Some take fewer courses, which can increase the length of their time at college, and that can impact lots of other things in the future. Or they might not register for a specific course that they need, or get poor grades because they don't have the textbook, or drop the course because they can't keep up with the material because they don't have a textbook. So it really has can have a detrimental impact on students, this high textbook cost. So the use of OER is actually has been shown that increases student performance. So this table here kind of shows like increase in grades with the use of OER, and decrease in the DFW grades. That's a sample of about 20,000 students. There's some data from our colleges across the district with the fall 2020, fall 2021, how many OER sections have been. And this data is often, it's hard to track because we're working with a textbook and other people to be able to track data on this, but often faculty don't report how much OER they use. There's a way to report, but it's often not like sort of the data that we collect might not be the most accurate ones, but we can see that there's been big increases from fall 2020 to 21 in the OER sections that we offer at the district. All right. And we can look at success and completion rates. The percentages are low, but they tend to be fairly positive, right? difference in success rates between OER and non-OER enrollments. And not sure what's the story with the Pacific Islander group. Often this group is fairly small number of students, so sometimes little fluctuations will kind of result in big numbers. And these are the top 5 OER subjects. Okay, so there's this kind of shows some of the subjects that offer OERs, like child development, aviation, geology, sociology, math, biology, history, and so on. There's others obviously, but those are the top 5 OER subjects across our district. This shows the fill rate comparison. The students are able to see on the schedule whether a course is OER or not, or ZTC, when they register. So especially in this era of low enrollment and classes getting canceled, any little boost helps. So OER sections often fill better than non-OER classes. So another incentive to use OER in your classes. All right, so what you can do to learn or apply or create OER. At Miramar College, we offer this Flock OER. So this is a community of learners, and Angela and I have been offering, with Angela Romero's help and other mentors, we've offered a few sessions of OER Flock in the fall, and we're doing it, the few sections this spring. And we have participant faculty being compensated to learn about OER or apply OER on their courses, and in certain cases create OER materials. You can apply for grants. So there's some grants that we can talk about in a minute. You can look for projects to join. So often what gets funded is people partnering up across, not just within the colleges, but across colleges and even across the state. So if you're looking for an OER in your subject and you can't find one, a good place to look is the ACCC OERI. There's a link to a site that I'm gonna show in a minute. There's like discipline leads that you can contact to help you search for OER or give you resources. And often if they don't exist, there are partnerships that you can form with other faculty across the state to create. And there's grants that you can use to collaborate, to create the OER that you want. Start OER ZTC work group in your department. I think I can't really emphasize enough how the department is kind of working together as a department is really important in moving your whole department towards using OER and ZTC. I think it makes everybody's work a lot more easier, fulfilling. You feel like you're part of a group that sort of you all sort of believe in the same thing. I know I'm spoiled in our math department because we have that dynamic, and sometimes that doesn't happen. But even if you can find a few people in your department to support each other and share resources, that's really great. And often what I do, I don't have everything like worked out. I still have courses that I teach, like I taught a course 5 years ago, and that I taught again an intersession, and I haven't used OER for that course before. So in intersession, I'm gonna search and see if I can find the OER book for differential equations, and I found a few. Actually, there aren't that many because differential equations are a little bit more specialized. I found like 3, and I picked one on LibreText texts, and then sort of went with it. sort of create lecture notes and create videos. So sometimes, it can be a lot of work, but if you kind of believe in it and you're dedicated, you just start at it, keep going. And like the first time it might not be perfect, but over a couple of semesters, a few semesters, you can sort of start collecting the information that you need and get the course set. All it takes is to start. So, and then there's supports there for you. There are many places to find OERs to adopt or adapt, and these are all good suggestions, but there's many more. Often I'll just Google for things, but sometimes that's won't get me in too many places, but things like LibreText has a lot of stuff. Open Textbook Library, OpenStax is great for math and other subjects. But there's, these are often you can find like whole textbooks, but there's other resources that you can find, free materials like the Smithsonian or other things like that you can find materials like videos and articles and resources that can help put the course together. So yeah, I mentioned the ASCCC. There's often you'll kind of see calls for collaboration on different projects. So for example, there might be a revision to introduction for oceanography, or you can be a call for collaborators to contribute case studies for certain things like environmental geology, or for writing textbooks or lecture materials. I think, Angela, you told me like just creating problem sets, or I think sort of the ancillary materials are really important for a lot of courses. So those get calls for being created to support the teaching. So in terms of sort of our district, there's funding and sort of calls for proposals to fund not only creation, but just, it's a sort of combination of using OERs, etc., but also creating online shells for online courses for our students. So these are some projects that have been funded by the district in the first round, like training instructional aides to care for children with special needs, OER materials for Art of the US, converting publisher materials to ZTC for chemistry, create a free online homework, creation of brand new classified curriculum for ASL courses, ZTC for Math 119, which is like statistics or physical geography labs or biology. So these are projects that are funded or in the process of they're in process right now. Okay, and there's some resources. I can put this in the chat, and you guys can use them. So this is the end of my little spiel. I like the rest of the time to kind of just be discussion and chatting, and other people can fill in some of the details, especially with the grants and how to apply for them. I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, anybody's up for some questions?
I have a question. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I see Brian raised his hand. Have you used, maybe you said it and I didn't hear you, student created content, is that considered OER?
Yeah, that can be considered OER. I haven't done it myself. But I know some others instructors, especially like English ESL, have done student created. I know I chatted with a professor from City a few years ago where I think it was an ESL class when she got students to write background stories or a cookbook or yeah, I think it's time. Yeah, it's time consuming and there's a lot of things to like put together and edit and maybe even publish to like a place like Lulu, which does cheap publishing. But yeah, I know professors that have done it and they think the experience is great for the students.
Right.
One thing I've seen people do is create Wikipedia pages or buff them up a little bit, assign their students to do that. So they find an artist or somebody and look at their biography and try to plug in missing information. Or they can do it with anybody, a physicist, or it doesn't have to be biography either. Just any topic that they're interested in.
Hi, Brian.
I just wanted to say, well, two things. First is I love the fact that your kids live on in OER. I think that's a wonderful thing. That would bring me joy. It's always wonderful to see things being reused. It's a wonderful case of information being relevant and continuing to help others. So I appreciate that. The other comment, and I'm just going to leave this out there. There's different funding that Anne was talking about, or that's mentioned here. Some of them have different kind of focuses, and a lot of them, I will just say, if you are looking into OER, really wonderful to connect with your peers, especially in your discipline. Some of those grants, if you are going for them, are larger. Some are more focused on smaller ones, but some encourage collaboration. And so if you are looking at OER, especially as you're developing it, it's a wonderful thing to contact your peers, especially in your department or across the colleges if you happen to have a subject that spans throughout, and see if you can connect, because there's some wonderful large opportunities, again, some that are focused, but it's also good just to connect with your peers and see what they're up to. And then again, you can have a chance for something bigger if that is something that you're interested in.
Yeah, my advice is always going to be don't try to do too much by yourself. I think it's just, yeah, it's kind of like, trying to conquer the world by yourself, because there are other people out there who are trying to do the same things. So being able, and they could just be next office, right? Or they could be across California, but working through just reaching out to your colleagues or contacting your discipline lead at the ASCC, ASCCC, it's like a good starting place to see if there's any work being done or any desire to be done in a certain discipline.
There's a question about funding earlier. I would look at organizations like the 20mm Foundation and others that are funding. Sometimes you'll see calls for proposals coming through them. ASCCC will fund up to $30,000. You have to work with peers from at least 3 different campuses total. So it could be you with 2 people from 2 other campuses or 2 other districts. And you can see the kind of things that they funded in the past. I dropped the link into the chat. But 20mm Foundation, you can also partner with groups like LibreText and OpenStax. Often send calls out for people who are looking to write textbooks. And so they're also looking for collaborators often. They've already got like a proposal in, but now they're looking for 5 or 6 people to help with that book. I don't know, 3 chapters per person for an 18-chapter book. Sounds a little bit more manageable. So you can always look for opportunities like that. There are others like, CCC OER, dedicated to community colleges in California, and also OER. And they often have funds and other guides for OER work. Diane, I see your hand up, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Sorry, I'm hold on. My audio keeps going out. The ASCCC that you're referring to, is that the RFPs?
It is.
Okay, so I understand they're closed now, but they're going to open up another section of it soon. Have you
Probably
heard that?
call number 5 just closed on February 22nd, I think it was. Or somewhere right around there. But there's always, never guarantees that future calls will come out, but probably there'll be a 6th, 7th, 8th. Yeah. And I think it's tied up with the 115 million that Governor Newsom has allotted for OERs in California.
Okay, great, thanks.
There any other questions or just thoughts about your experience with starting with OER or in the middle of OER? Like, what's your process?
Well, at the same, I'm excited. I kind of like the idea of not having to order textbooks. And I think the fact that I know that often they'll have like new editions of stuff that come out, and then I have to think, oh, is it really, which version now do I need for the students? And so I think with the OER, it gives me a lot more flexibility to be able to kind of pick and choose what kind of content I want to include. And then I know that I'm not going to have to make some dramatic change a lot of times to my classes if the textbook does, if it's a traditional textbook and it gets updated, then you have to try to go through and figure out what changed and then how to change your the way that you've designed your course. So a lot of times with the OER, those are being updated. If there's an update, it will tell you right there, this is what's been updated. And I've had the one textbook I use has been updated a couple of times, but they tell you specifically, we added this particular content or we changed this piece. And I just think that makes it so much easier to kind of not have to worry about that part of the class.
Yeah, so I can talk more about my experience of sort of nitty gritty of what I do with OER. So I'm teaching Calculus 3 this semester. I haven't taught it for 5 years. So last time I taught it was with a publisher book. So I'm decided to go OER this time. So there is a OpenStax Calculus 3 book. Basically, I found it on the website. And OpenStax has an instructor resource center. You just create an account. If you have an EDU address, they'll give you one. And I kind of just look through what's in there. Okay, so often what's in there, it kind of depends, depending on the textbook. But they'll often have like PowerPoint slides. I don't use PowerPoint to teach, so I ignore those. But I found a whole folder of like the textbook in Word format. So they provide that for the instructors. So if you're like doing lecture notes or you want to provide lecture notes to the students, you can edit those, which I think is like really great. Sometimes you can find them in PDF format, but it's a bit harder to edit with the PDF stuff. So basically, that helps me really organize because I'll go to Canvas next and I'll start my modules. Okay, so I'll have my chapter 1 module or my week 1 module. I think I organize by chapters. So I go to my chapter 1 module and I'll basically put a link to the chapter of the textbook from OpenStax, or I'll even like insert the website into there so the students don't have to go to an external link. And then I'll go through, okay, I'm teaching these sections, and to plan basically the weekend before or whatever, I'll go to the Word documents and I'll basically edit them, and I'll make like skeletal lecture notes. So I'll keep like the theorems and definitions, and I'll keep the examples that I want to go through, but leave a lot of blank space. And then I'll save them as PDFs and upload them. And then when I teach in class, so this is a face-to-face class, I'll basically use my computer and a stylus to write my lectures in the skeletal lecture notes. And most students bring their iPads to my classroom, and they'll take notes on the skeletal notes as I'm lecturing. So basically my prep is kind of putting those skeletal lecture notes together. And because it's the first time I'm using it, I basically have to create them the weekend before. But once they're done, they're going to be done forever. I've had some stuff that I've used for other classes that I created, and now they're just there as a routine. But then I'll try to find other resources. It's like I like to do some activities, and I'll go to the publisher book that I used last, and I'll find some activities in the instructor resources for the publisher book, and I'll use those because they can sort of use up to a certain percentage of a textbook and it's free to use. I might take 1 or 2 or 3 activities from there. And I'll go to my Open Math, and there's a course for Calculus 3 in my Open Math that I can use for their online homework, and I import that in Canvas. And I found a 3D grapher that's really good on some other website, and I use those to show people in class what they're doing. So it's kind of, this is sort of, I'm in the middle of adapting a course using OER as we speak. So these are some of the things that I basically do. And I try to just make it a part of my planning for what I'm going to teach, rather than kind of think of it as in addition. It's like, oh, I'm prepping to teach these few sections this week. I'm going to create the OER materials at the same time. All right. Hi, Diana.
Hi, are we sharing how we use OERs?
Yeah.
Okay, so I use OER textbook and ancillary materials exclusively for my online reading class. And what I did when I was choosing a book, I contacted the author, which I highly recommend, because if somebody is writing OER, if they've written an OER book, they probably have other materials. So I contacted the author only just to thank him for the book, because I really, really liked it. And he sent me a plethora of what he has written. And it was probably about 50%, because I teach a non-credit, but I teach advanced ESL. So about 50% of the materials I was able to use. So I had to sort out his materials. It was that much. But what I do, similar to Anne, since it is CC BY, it's written CC BY, I can take chapters or sections of the chapters and embed them in Canvas as long as I give the author credit. So it's very, very easy to use when it's an OER. So it's not like, oh, I can only give them a link. No, I can actually embed chapters of the book. I can embed questions. I can use questions from the book for quizzes. So it's a really, really awesome. But I do highly recommend that you contact the author, even if it's just to thank them, because they are quite generous.
Yeah, thank you so much for that suggestion. Because I said it's like for this book, I found the Word documents for each section, which are easy, like a lot easier to edit to my own needs. I never thought of contacting the author, but yeah, if you do, they probably have it, because they have editable files.
Yep. The author sent me the PDF version, the Google Doc version, all his slides, all his Quizlets, and then short stories that he wrote that went along with the textbook. I mean, it was just a plethora of information. He gave me a link to his Google site that houses even more materials. And he said, feel free to use anything on there. And so it was like I had an abundance and I had to narrow down for my 9-week class what I was going to use because it was so much. I was astonished, but then I thought, well, this is a sharing community. So now I let everybody know, if you find something great, contact the author.
Yeah, that's great. I find Canvas to be crucial in all the steps because that helps me organize all the stuff and put it together in a way that I want to teach it. So I use Canvas heavily in all my types of classes, face-to-face, online, whatever I teach, because that's yeah, it's like, how do I put things together, organize things together? In my documents on my computer, I have things all scattered all over, even in my Google Drive, but once I start putting them in Canvas, then they start making sense. So I really recommend getting a developmental shell or something and just starting putting materials and modules to organize yourself, and then you can see where you need to fill the gaps and so on. Anybody else want to share how you use OER or what you're thinking, getting stuck anywhere? All right, Diana.
So one of my colleagues had to leave from CE, but they're in the clothing and textiles and fashion department, and they are looking for, they want to write, and they haven't found actually an OER material or book that they can use for their courses. So they want to write a material. They already have some materials, but they want to put it together in a textbook format. So do you know of any other clothing, textiles, fashion within our district that is looking for partners?
I don't know, Angela, do you know?
I don't, but you could send an email out across the campuses to see if anybody responds.
Does
right.
the ASCCC have a discipline lead for it?
I don't think they do. You know what? That's a good question. I'll check that to see if there is a discipline lead. Yep, I forgot about that. And but I'll also reach out to, should I just reach out to the department chairs on the credit side, or the librarians, since we're all OER friendly?
You could do
What
both.
is your recommendation? Okay.
The chairs
Okay.
and and then they can,
Okay.
forward the emails to people they might know.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You might create a Microsoft team to kind of bring everyone together too, with the.
Oh, that's a good idea.
365.
That is a good idea. Oh, easier idea too. Thank you, Trenton.
Sure thing.
So in that discipline, are there any like trade organization that might have like materials or instructional materials for? I don't know.
I bet there are, but I bet they're copyrighted. I think that's probably why, because our department chair in that program works with like, what is that in Balboa Park, that theater? Oh my gosh, I just went blank.
The Globe?
The Globe. She works with the Globe, and then she also works with whoever does the plays downtown by Civic Center. Sorry, I'm just trying to blank. I haven't eaten lunch. But so I know that she's part of some of those organizations, but she had to leave to go to her department meeting. But I will check with her. I'm sure that she's looked because she's come to my OER office hours.
Yeah.
before, So
Yes, sometimes even if things are copyrighted, there's they're willing to share or
Right.
yeah, I think that like I was talking to a fire tech person last semester who was
Mhm.
doing the training, and I think a publisher or creator, whatever, the stuff
Mhm.
that was copyrighted gave them permission to use certain materials, maybe not like everything.
Right.
But I think it's probably worthwhile approaching
Mhm.
um,
Okay.
places, even if they're copyrighted, to see what they're willing to do.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. They might have something for educators, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In their
Exactly.
terms of use, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Also,
Sure.
with copyrighted material, you do have fair use as an option, so you can use up to 20% of a book.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming and sharing. It was great to talk to people, and especially about OER. So